We have never seen this before, as Damian Lillard is poised for revenge, as he recently came out and revealed the very shocking truth behind his offseason and how he has spent this entire past few months preparing himself for what's going to be the biggest Bucks season in recent memory. So I'm going to break that down in this episode, as well as discuss what it means going forward for the Bucks. They did also have their preseason game yesterday, and Dame Lillard showed out. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're part of the percentage that aren't subscribed to the channel, about 86% of you who are watching aren't subscribed. We're getting very close to 1,000 subscribers, and that's been a goal of ours for a while. So if you want to help us towards that goal, hit that button if you're a part of the 86% who aren't subscribed. But let's dive right into it. So obviously, preseason is now getting underway. But before that happened, Dame Lillard came out and in the interview revealed how hard his offseason was and how hard the season was and everything like that. And he gave some very interesting insight on how this season is going to be crucial for him. It's going to be crucial for the Milwaukee Bucks. And he started off very good in his preseason debut on living up to some of the hype. But you can see this here. Dame Lillard is out for revenge with the Bucks after the toughest year of his life. And he basically came out and spoke about how so many things changed, and not only on the court, but off the court as well. And you can see, where does last year rank among the hardest ones in your life? He shook his head. He stopped what he was doing. He made direct eye contact. I would probably have to rank it at the top, probably the toughest year of my life. Now, obviously, this is referring to a few different things. Obviously, he was traded from the Portland Trail Blazers. He played there his entire career, 11 seasons, showed severe utmost loyalty to them. And then they shipped him off to, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks, even though he requested a trade to Miami. And then obviously he had some personal things going on as well. But he ranked it as the toughest year of his life. Now, obviously, a lot of Bucks fans out there were, and I mean, a lot of NBA fans were saying, hey, this Dame, not Dame was washed, but Dame had a pretty bad year. He's on the decline. He's on the downhill trajectory because he played alongside Giannis and they didn't get it done. Obviously, we all know that last year was one of the most disappointing years for the Milwaukee Bucks that we've seen in a little bit. And that's mainly because, injuries. Of course, Dame and Giannis got hurt in the playoffs. They didn't win. They got bounced in round one, which was very unfortunate by the Pacers. So then people were saying, or quick to kind of call out Dame Lillard, say the trade was horrible, all these things. But now he basically is saying this was the toughest year of his life last year. Now that he has had some time to settle, get through all that, he's ready to shock the NBA and really be what the Bucks were supposed to be last year. And you can see it here. He said, it wasn't like I was traded in the middle of the summer. It was right before camp started, a couple days before camp started. I didn't know where I was going to be. Going through divorce, I got 3 kids, being away from the kids, not having a schedule set when I'm going to see them. It was a lot to juggle at one time while still having to perform. It was just hard. And the article basically goes on to say that we still know that Dame is widely considered one of the top point guards to play the game. He went on to struggle last year. Again, a struggling season for him is still putting up 24 points a game, but he did struggle a little bit with his efficiency. And again, in the 2022 season with the Trailblazers, he shot a lot better, and they got bounced in the first round. But that's not due to fully Dame Lillard's fault. Obviously, the health of the team, Giannis missing some games, and in the playoffs and everything like that was kind of what contributed to that. But he said he wants to put the Bucks in a position to win a championship, and asked if he believes if him and Giannis can go and live up to their initial expectations of becoming one of the most dominant duos in the league. He didn't hesitate. He said, yeah, I think we can. It's not a matter of us having to do something special. What he's dominant at, what I'm dominant at goes together. And we both got to be aggressive and understand the moments and situations where we can use the other to create an advantage. And we got to trust that. And as time goes on, we've gotten better. And this year will be even better. And that's something that I've been adamant about on the channel, is that, last year, everything was working against the Bucks in the sense of the Dame trade happened late, a bunch of injuries, even Chris Middleton being injured, Brook Lopez dealing with some stuff. Everything happened at the worst time, and it's their first year playing together. Dame was not used to playing with an actual co-star. We saw him play with CJ McCollum for a while there in Portland. Giannis, and with all due respect to CJ McCollum, Giannis and CJ are on different levels, and this is the first time that Dame had high expectations to actually win. They actually had championship expectations and aspirations. And it's very tough. Obviously, their play styles fit very well. It's why John Horst made the trade, and that's why a bunch of fans and analysts at the time maybe gave the Bucks the favorite to win the East alongside the Celtics, of course, before the season started last year. But it takes some time, it takes some adjusting. We saw a ton of growing pains last season, whether it's with Dame, whether it's with Giannis. Obviously, Dame wasn't playing his best basketball, but at the same time, it's up to him to adapt to Giannis's play style, because Giannis goes downhill. He's obviously not as much of a shooter as Dame by any means, but it should bode well, and especially now that they made a bunch of other additions with guys like Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, guys who can just stretch the floor, play 3 and D to help compensate a bit for some of the defense that they're lacking by acquiring Dame and getting rid of Drew Holiday. Because that's the biggest knock on them last year was, hey, Drew went to the Boston Celtics and they steamrolled the playoffs, won the championship with relative ease, and now they have less defenders, especially last year. I mean, Chris Middleton's not a good defender. Dame Lillard's definitely not a good defender. But they got guys like Gary Trent Jr. who can be a good defender. Taurean Prince who can be a good defender. They obviously still have Pat Connaughton. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But ultimately, they're going to need to step up. And Dame is in the position to do so, and especially now with less distractions. They had a whole offseason to prepare with each other. Like I said earlier in this article, it was right before camp that he got traded to the Bucks. They didn't really have time to mend with Giannis too much. He just got thrown right into the fire. Regular season started. They went, and they obviously didn't do what they were supposed to do. But now they've had the whole offseason to work together. They've had the whole, now preseason, they're going to start hopefully playing together, and they put themselves in a very good position going forward if they can continue to work on their games together, because ultimately it shouldn't be too hard for two elite players like Dame and Giannis to work together. I mean, Giannis is not a super hard player to play around. Obviously, he's fairly ball dominant at times, but he's one of the best players in the NBA, and Dame is obviously a very good shooter, which is something that the one, I guess, knock on Giannis to a degree. So Dame should be a perfect complement to Giannis, and that's why they made this trade, and that's why ultimately they have super high expectations going forward, and Dame definitely thinks that they can do that. And again, last year he finished 24 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, and again, he wasn't very efficient. That was the biggest knock on him. And he said, I think a lot of times people talk about revenge seasons. It's like they're going out for blood with anybody else. But I think it's the revenge of something I need to go take back for me, not for anybody else. I know what went into last season, and I know what goes into me being my best. That's all I'm focusing on. And he spent the entire offseason focusing on being his best. And this is now, we've been talking about this all offseason, about how Dame has spent a lot of time working on his game this year and working on being good alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo. And that's going to be the biggest turning point for this team, is if they can do that. And it started yesterday in their preseason game. Dame in 17 minutes put up 15 points, 4 assists, 2 boards. That's pretty good, and he obviously led the team. Well, actually, Bobby Portis led the team in scoring with 16, but he led the starting unit in scoring. And again, there was no Giannis in yesterday's game. But even seeing some of the new guys like Taurean Prince play pretty solid. Gary Trent Jr. didn't have a great game, but again, they're all getting accustomed to each other, and that's all you can really ask for in the preseason right now, is just seeing how everybody mends together. They got a bunch of guys like Taurean Prince and Gary Trent Jr. who don't demand the ball. They can play off ball really well, and that's obviously going to be what they're going to do. Gary Trent Jr., he can create for himself when needed, especially if he's on with the bench unit, because they might need a bit more on-ball scoring. But when you have Giannis and you have Dame, especially Dame being one of the better on-ball creators in the game, it should make Gary Trent Jr.'s job way easier. It should make Taurean Prince's job way easier. I mean, really, it should make everybody's job way easier, even down to Bobby Portis, to spread the floor out more. There's going to be a lot more focus on Dame this year, hopefully, and Giannis, now that they've actually played together well. It should be one of the nastiest pick and rolls in the league, but they didn't get to use it that much last year because of injuries, because of lack of chemistry between Giannis and Dame, especially with Dame only being traded to the Bucks right at the end of training camp, or right before the regular season started, which gave them not much time to work together. But now that it wasn't before the regular season and that they've had the whole offseason to work together, it should be very interesting to see what happens. But let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.